Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Somebody Should Have Told Me podcast. I am your host, Miss Majesty, and today is not even the day that I am normally supposed to be recording, okay? Now, I don't have necessarily a scheduled day. I guess I tend to, I don't know, a lot of times I end up at the studio like on Wednesdays or Thursdays, but um nonetheless, and that can change on day to day, but I've really felt led to hop on today and to share with you guys something that the Lord asked of me today. And when the Lord told me this, I had two reactions. One was like, okay, and one was, excuse me. Okay. Whew. So I do have tissues on standby just in case this one ends up being a crier. Okay. Um, and if you're listening to the audio, thank you. Today we do have a visual. And though I am not committing to fully coming back to visuals just yet, I felt like today's episode was important for you to see me. And I do have a team that I am very excited to work with and looking forward to working with for the visuals. So that'll be coming soon. But let me get to the point, okay? Because this is a drop in where I felt like the Lord was on me. And so I want to share with you what He shared with me. Today's episode is named after what the Lord told me, and it is called Forgiving Purity Culture. I was running errands today. It's 4:34. I was doing my things, and the Lord just said, I want you to forgive purity culture. And I probably could have fell out if I wasn't already sitting down, because what? And that's how the Lord can do, because I feel like the Lord can preach, because why would you say that? No, but seriously, so let me give you a little bit of backstory. My young adult pastor, okay, had told me literally like 10 years ago, okay, before Black people really even knew what a podcast was, to start a podcast. She was like, Majesty, I really think that you should start a podcast. And I knew the importance of like having your own platform, but there was just, I don't know, I guess maybe I wasn't listening to podcasting, but whatever it was, I didn't do it. Okay. And also, the trends had not pointed in the direction of podcasting at that time either. So back then, when she told me it was all everybody was doing Facebook Live, oh my God, and then they went Instagram Live, and then Clubhouse had the pandemic on lock and all these things. And so I really, wasn't trying to do the podcast thing necessarily. So then I do start to feel like it's my time. So I started talking about like rethinking purity culture back in like literally like 2021. As soon as I got to Houston, and I would just do like think tanks, and I would go on what is it called? Facebook Live and Instagram Live. And I would talk to different women, and I would see how his purity culture affected them and all these things. And then, I really started to feel like it was time, but then had moved to San Francisco. Then as soon as I thought I was settled there, unbeknownst to me, I wasn't. And I had to uproot my life once again and come back to Houston and put down roots again. And that was just a lot of moving parts. Would not recommend, by the way. And so I kept like delaying even starting once I got back this last time, just because I wanted to feel more settled. I needed to get everything situated. I needed to look for a new job, this and that. And so one of my friends was encouraging me, like, you do not have to be perfect to start your podcast. You just need to go and you need to be obedient. But backpedaling just a quick second is when I was doing the Facebook Lives, I had a conversation with my pastor at that time, and I said, you know, do I want to talk about purity culture, or do I want to really work on my dating life? And I chose to really work on my dating life. Did I want to be about it, or did I want to talk about it? I chose to be about it. And that's what I wanted to do. And so I just took some time to like date, just have fun, just have season of rest, enjoy my life, be free, be young, all the things. And I do not regret that time at all. So also with that, I knew I was still processing all of the things that was happening to me, because once I got to move to Houston, it was my first time really kind of getting to live out the fullness of my ideas that were happening in my mind in 2020 and early 2021. So I didn't want to start the podcast from an unhealed place. I did not want to start the podcast when I was deconstructing, okay? Because I felt like, and I still don't like the word deconstructing. I strongly prefer the word disentangling, because the core like tenets of my faith are pretty much the same. Same destination, different route, okay? Not the route of shame, not the route of fear to everything, not the route of manipulation, and all those things. So I wanted to make sure I was fully processed, before I came and said anything. I didn't want to feel like I was bleeding on people. I didn't want to feel like I was like trauma vomiting on people. I really wanted to have myself in a place of wholeness as best I possibly could before I started telling anybody about the thoughts that were swarming around in my head. Okay. So I did that, took my time, did my processing. I am back in therapy again with a new therapist that I have found that is not through my church, which is a good experience. My therapist is a Christian, but I don't necessarily think she's a Christian therapist, if that makes sense. Okay. She's not necessarily there to tell you what to do spiritually, but her personal spiritual practice, yes, she is a Christian woman. Okay. So, when I was trying to make sure that I've worked through everything and coming from a place of like wholeness and starting the podcast, I feel like I was successful in doing that. And I wanted to make sure that if I was going to talk about purity culture, surviving purity culture, that I did so in a solution focused way. And I wholeheartedly believe that I've done that. I feel like every guest that I have brought is in the Surviving Purity Culture series, should have advanced you in some way to give you practicality, to give you full knowledge of whatever those missing pieces the purity culture may have robbed you of. Okay, so I really feel like I did my big one on surviving purity culture. So no takebacks on that. That is not where this episode is going. Okay, but within my own heart, I feel like I have some offense towards purity culture. Okay. So, in times past, in my life, up until these past couple of years, I have always been the go to friend. Okay. In my life, people do truly come to me pretty much with everything. Okay. Now, I do have my go to friends. I've probably had about 3 solid go to friends. And those go to friends, those relationships stand anywhere from 12 years at the shortest. So anywhere from 12 to I don't know, maybe 20 something years. I have a few folks that I do go to, but for the most part, most people that I know come to me. Okay. I I do believe that I conduct myself as a trustworthy person, an integral person, and things like that. Now, in my life, I no longer really allow that, meaning I'm not trying to fix anyone's life, which is kind of the position where I feel like I fell into. I am no longer responsible because I feel like there were some areas for me where it started to delay me trying to help somebody else and being more invested in certain people's well-being than they themselves are invested. So that time is up, okay, I must say. So nowadays, don't come to me with that. But in times past, in the first 30 years of my life, yes, everybody does come to me. Everybody asks me things. I do believe, I shouldn't say don't come to me with that, but I am more wise about the boundaries that I have. I do believe that I have the spiritual gift of wisdom beyond my years and experience. And so most times I really can see it for people. Like if you come to me, and that is something I ask God for. If you come to me and you ask me a question, it could be something that I haven't even been through, and that wisdom is gonna be on 1,000, and it be the Lord, because the Lord be like, give me a download, and I can really strategize it, and I can. It's like literally, I can see your life, and I'd be like, okay, if you do this, boop boop boop, do this right here, boop boop, move this over here, doop doop, and I can see it for the people. I can see it for the girls. I can see it for you in business. I can see it for companies. I can see it for friends. I can see it for men. I can see it for women. All the things. Like I can really help people. I'm really am gifted to help people put those pieces together. Okay. Whew. So with that, being the go-to friend, a lot of people come to me with a lot of things. And so at one point, I had such a narrow view in my life of that I only had friends who ascribed to purity culture. So I very much used to live in an echo chamber. So I wasn't the only one who had a purity ceremony and read I Kissed Dating Goodbye and all these things, and different friends and different people that I knew that were my age at this time. This was like a 360 like view. Were introduced to the ideals of purity culture in some ways, whether it was in their home, whether it was through evangelical movements, whether it was other charismatic spaces that perpetuated the ideas of purity culture, and however they were introduced to it. Miss Lakeisha Dixon Jones, she had shared her own experience where, on her college campus, they had her write a contract for her purity, commitment. And I don't recall anyone specifically that was like in my friend group that did the contract thing, but I'm just saying there are many ways that women were introduced to purity culture, through different like means and methods, through different influencers, through different ministries, and all of these things. But in a nutshell, it all boils down to the same thing. Okay. And so these ideals that you should have your hands tied and perpetually wait on God with absolutely no action and absolve yourself of all personal responsibility for your life heavily impacted a lot of women. And I think that in many ways, I feared the anticipated impact, even for myself. Like, purity culture has robbed me, okay? But not as fully as much as I feared that it would. Thank God for a turning point, okay? But so let's go back to everybody else. Okay, so with that, I know different individuals that, because of the ideals of purity culture, and I'm not speaking against holiness. I'm not speaking against abstinence, holiness, and purity culture, those are completely different things. Okay. Don't even conflate the two. So with purity culture, it robbed a lot of women of autonomy. And so for whatever reason, all of these people, whether these are people that I recently met or people that I have known for 10 and 20 years, seem to have found me. Okay. So with that, I have seen purity culture rob some women of their autonomy. Okay. Pushing them into a place where they were unaware that they were going to have fertility challenges. Okay. Because purity culture made false promises. If you abstain, wait on God, you will have perfect, healthy marriage. You will not be divorced if you just abstain. And it really kind of painted this picture that if you abstain ahead of marriage, then it's almost like it's just smooth sailing once you hit the altar, which many people have reported from the other side of the altar that this is not true. Okay, there are people who have fully abstained and gone through a divorce. There are people who fully abstained and waited till they were married and still have to put in effort on their marriage, have contentious situations, and all of these things. There are still women who abstained, or couples who have abstained until marriage and still had problems with their children and all these things. So purity culture was selling hogwash. Okay. But I found myself being the one that is praying everybody through. So one of my friends called me, and she was just like, she had a scare with ovarian cancer, I believe it was, and just called me and was like, Majesty, I did wait on God, just in tears. You know what I'm saying? Like, I did everything that the church told me to do, and I so desperately want to be able to have children, and just feeling robbed of time because purity culture also assaults the intentions of women. So, meaning it could put a burden on a woman for things that you did not even do. Like a purity culture can accuse a woman of promiscuity that's a virgin, and nothing could be further from the truth. And so somehow all of these women seem to have found me. Okay. They seem to call me for prayer. So I am praying, I am fasting, but I'm also weeping with those who weep. Personally, I felt robbed of purity culture when it just delayed the start of my dating life. And then once I started dating, I'm like, everything that purity culture told me that dating would be was wrong. I'm like, oh, this is so great. This is so fun. I should have started sooner. This is wonderful. Great. Roses and flowers and lilies. And where has dating been all my life? So then there's the contention of that. Then there is the uncertainty. Like, how much is purity culture going to rob me? Will fertility become a challenge for me? Because when I started to realize purity culture was a scam, my eyebrows started to raise like in 2020. In 2020, I had fibroid surgery, okay? And it's basically, I had a laparoscopic myomectomy, which is basically, it works like a C-section, but instead of taking out a baby, they take out the fibroid, okay? But after my surgery, my doctor was like, yeah, you know, you shouldn't anticipate being able to have a whole bunch of kids. Now, I wasn't ever trying to have a whole bunch of kids. I feel 3 in my spirit, but still, it just, the only thing a woman wants to hear is I can do what I want to do with my woman. Okay. And so my doctor was also like, Yeah, we got the fibroids out. The surgery was successful, but you also need to get this show on the road. And at that time, I did not even have movie tickets to the show, okay? Much less getting any kind of show on the road. So I had a lot of fear of what else purity culture was going to steal. Okay. I felt angry that purity culture robbed me of my sensuality. I felt angry about what purity culture robbed from me. Like I felt like purity culture robbed me of my 20s. Now, thank and praise, I'm losing weight and I'm getting myself together and I'm getting in shape. But when I tell you the body really gave what it was supposed to give in my early 20s, and I didn't even fully know it, it was like I was really, and I still am, but I was such an effortless baddie. Okay. Now things are on the right track. Things are looking up, and I still do love my body. But I will say that the weight loss that I have um, gotten now is a absolute full-time job. Okay. And in my early 20s, it was so seamless. You do one thing and you lose 20 and 30 pounds. It was just great. So I was angry at purity culture for the years of my youth that it stole. I was angry at purity culture for the lies that it sold. And I do mean sold. The way that I saw people manipulate the desires of women, people pretend like they have solutions that they actually don't when it comes to purity culture. You know, like I literally heard one person who admittedly amassed millions of dollars on, if I say the name, you're going to know it, but encouraging women to prepare, okay, for their future spouse. And then out of the same mouth, say that he did not believe that there are enough discipled men of God for the women. And instead of going and discipling more men, he chose to continue to profit off the women and make women feel like, oh, you're not praying enough. You're not fasting enough. You're not doing these things. So you can imagine the contention that has built in me for purity culture and victims of it. And so it's me that the girls call when purity culture has pushed them past their optimal childbearing years. It's me that they call when purity culture doesn't deliver on its false promises. For whatever reason, it's me that the girls call when money is spent and purity culture doesn't deliver. And I found myself weeping with those who weep, okay, mourning, and all of these things. And so I look at purity culture as a thief. I look at purity culture as a robber. I look at purity culture as a bully that has beat up and literally dragged by the ponytail all of my friends, single and married alike. Because for the longest time, I thought that purity culture had an end game. I thought marriage was the finish line of purity culture until all of my purity culture friends that I had grown up with started to get married and still could not tap into their sensuality, still did not feel comfortable with their own sex drive, still did not feel at rest in their own bodies, the girls continued to report back that these ideals continue to rob them of their fullness as a woman. So when I look at purity culture as a bully, okay, that is literally jumping me and my homegirls, it angers me. It is devastating. And it doesn't help when other platforms continue to perpetuate that idea, or I feel like I am just screaming out into the world, girls, run the other way. Stop now. Turn around. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200 because purity culture sure don't have $200 to give you. They'll take your $200 and you can forget the rest, okay? Because they'll make you feel like Jezebel if you actually even utter a word about what you honestly want out of life. Okay? And then also try to tell you what you should want. And that's a story for another day. So I think I had contention that was building more than what I even realized. And even in starting this podcast, girl, I feel like I've been in a fight. Okay? I just feel like I'm out here trying to champion the cause. I feel like I'm out here trying to tell the people. Okay? And the people that done got us into a conundrum still be sitting on their millions. Okay? Like, it's like, girl, do you not see the bodies laying in the streets? Okay? Help! The girls are down. The girls are in distress. And even seeing like women that would no otherwise have any fertility issues, not that I'm a doctor, no otherwise have fertility issues, but purity culture pushed them so far past their optimal time and prime that now the girls are just having their fingers crossed. Like, we just secretly have to go away and have a silent committee meeting. Like, oh yeah, it's okay to freeze your eggs. Oh yeah, it's okay to do your fertility treatments. Don't tell the church, but this sounds like a great time to take your fertility into your own hands. And no, you ain't married to Abraham. And no, you ain't married to Sarah. So you don't have to wait till you're 90 to have a kid, as purity culture loves to sell you. I mean, these niggas love to sell you a conference to for you to hike your end all the way out there for you to tell you to wait on God like Sarah. Was she not like 90 something? Do people even live that long? Okay. Whew. I digress. I need to take a deep breath because I done got a hype all over again. We won't even start on the scam that is singles conferences. We literally will not do it today. It's too much. But literally, I feel like I've been on the Underground Railroad, okay? Like Harriet, Mother Faith, and Tubman trying to get the girls out of purity culture. And without even realizing it, I done got mad. Okay? Because it either seemed like you're trying to help people that don't want to be helped, or the people that do want to be helped is so heavy, or they are so far gone. And not, I mean, you're not far gone, but you know what I'm saying? Like, Whew, how, Lord. So I cast my cares on him. Jesus. I mean, we got to really sit here and figure out what the hell is ovulation in our 30s. Somebody please send help immediately. But then it's like, people keep calling me and all of a sudden I am the help. Wow, wow, wow. Somebody should have told me that I would have to be the one. But the Lord told me today to forgive purity culture. And I am stunned, but I am willing to truthfully admit that I have unknowingly internalized the burden that I have seen purity culture have. And it's so hard because I want to respect the friendships that I have, but when you see me speak to certain things or say friends or this and that, no, I'm literally asking for a friend. No, I'm literally doing this for a friend because I know somebody. Because I know a woman who's 38 on the edge, or I know a woman who's 42 and a virgin. And the people that you have seen come on the podcast, these are just one of many that feel comfortable sharing their story. But I promise you, I know and I talk to and easily can give you 30 women with the same story. And so being surrounded by that so much has gotten heavy. And the podcast would, for a little bit, it wasn't even like fun anymore. It was just heavy because I feel like I'm doing the work. I feel like I'm on assignment. But dang, you know? So I think that God was telling me today to forgive purity culture, because when you have unforgiveness, something is holding you back. Whatever you're choosing not to forgive, even if it's just a system at large, no matter where you received your purity messaging, your purity culture messaging from, whether it was school, whether it was abstinence only sex education, whether it was in your home, whether it was at your church, whether it was some influencer, whether it was some small group, whether it was some itinerant, glamorous preacher, whether it was some internet challenge, however you were introduced to these false ideals, I want to invite you into what the Lord personally shared with me, because I think it's safe to say purity culture has stolen enough. Purity culture has robbed the women of God enough. And we should not, by the default effects of unforgiveness, allow it to take any more. I would not allow the anxiety of what else purity culture can do to rob me anymore. I will not allow myself to be paralyzed by fear. I will not own stories that I haven't experienced. And because of the fact that I do not want to be consumed anymore by purity culture, I say before God and before all of you that I, Majisty Dennis, forgive purity culture for robbing the women of God of their divine and feminine nature, for robbing them of time, for robbing them of fertility, for robbing them of possibility. I forgive purity culture for robbing women of their liberty, of their freedom, of their youth, of their chance at love. I'm choosing to release it now and not let it steal anything else, not let it steal one more day, not let it steal one more date, not letting it grip my heart, my mind, my future, my present, and not even my past. It won't even consume the story of where I've fully been. So I release it. I give it to God. In Jesus' name, amen. And forgiveness does not mean that we are going back and saying all of a sudden that purity culture is right. Purity culture is wrong. But it just means that we're freeing ourselves from its grips and its chains. And we say yes to the liberty that God has given us. We say yes to our divine femininity. We say yes to divine health. We say yes to a healthy and a relationship with our bodies that honors God in every way, from fitness to nutrition to sexual health to self-care to relaxing our muscles to skincare. We say yes to a relationship with our bodies that says, God, we thank you for the body that you have given us. And that's what I felt led to share with you. A moment of my personal situation. So I love you all. And if you're forgiving purity culture just like I am, we're not saying purity culture is right. We're saying we're choosing to free ourselves fully from its grips. Let me know in the comments. I love you all. Share this with someone who you know has had enough of getting robbed, beat, dragged, kicked by purity culture. Until next time, this has been an episode of the Somebody Should Have Told Me podcast. I love you all.